Welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundy, how you doing?
Oh, doing not too bad. Yourself?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good.
Good stuff.
Definitely better than this morning. The news about Vasilevsky undergoing surgery for a herniated disc in his back. He'll be out for 8 to 10 weeks, which perfectly lines up with my trip to Tampa, which sucks, but...
Did that injury happen recently? Because that kind of came out of nowhere.
So he did say that he had quite a few injuries dating back to around game 30 of last year. And he didn't say what they were, but he did say some of them were localized in his back. So I'm wondering if he was trying to avoid surgery, and then maybe leading up to the season, he kind of tweaked it again and finally went, fuck it, this just has to be done, or something like that.
Yeah, because it's not very often you see guys elect to get surgery, just as the season's starting to come up. So I feel like it must have been something that he thought, was going to get better over time, and he could kind of just heal on his own. But yeah, he must have tweaked it, and then...
Yeah, he said he was going to be doing a good amount of rehabbing in the offseason, and said that he was hoping to start the season better than he was last year at the start of this year. So clearly this wasn't planned by him at all. It's just injury things, stuff comes up.
It's also the first time in 4 seasons where he actually had a shortened off season to really just rehab and get better. Like, he never really had that opportunity as much.
Yeah,
when they were going on their cup runs every year. So yeah, so he must have just tweaked it in practice or something. But hopefully, he can come back, as soon as possible. But also come back when he's going to be in top form.
Yeah, he you just gotta hope that he comes back, the same that he was. Obviously, it always sucks when somebody gets absolutely derailed by injuries.
Yeah,
I think it's rather underrated how important that for some of these guys that rehabbing, or rather, being healthy and not having to rehab, how much that can help them in those off seasons. Because I know Stamkos, I believe it was the off season of, I want to say 21. He said that this is the first off season that was the first year in 8 years where he just got to train. He wasn't rehabbing any injuries. He was good to go, and he was just practicing. And he went out there and put up 42 goals and 106 points that year. So
yeah,
I think underratedly, not having to rehab injuries. You get to actually not just make sure you don't decline, but you get to improve if you're not doing that.
Exactly right. Yeah. So what do they do now for their goaltending situation? I've seen rumors that they're going to maybe take a chance on Martin Jones, who it's kind of looking like he'll be placed on waivers by Toronto sometime soon. So there's a lot of rumors swirling that Martin Jones might be a guy that Tampa Bay looks to.
I would not hate that. I would not hate that at all. Earlier today, the same day that this happened, Spencer Martin went on waivers, and he was on
waivers.
He was Vasilevsky's backup for a couple years here. So it might be interesting to see him come back, but I definitely feel better with Martin Jones in net compared to Spencer Martin, probably.
Yeah, I would think so. Just in terms of having that experience, and I mean, both goalies did struggle last year, but Spencer Martin's never really been able to put together,
he's never been a starter like Jones has.
Yeah, exactly. Another name that I've seen people kind of throw around is Dan Vladar in Calgary. Making that work might be a little bit tough because, I mean, he's got 2 years left and he's making 2.2. So, I think Tampa would have to figure out if they can make that. money work. But again, it's also tough, bringing in a goalie like this now, on a contract that extends more than just this year when they're trying to figure out money to sign Stamkos and I mean, we know Calgary's trying to trade Vladar. Like they've already said that they want Dustin Wolf to start with the Flames this season as he should be. Like he should make the team.
Absolutely, you can't have him not at least be getting 30 starts this year. He's got to play.
But they have said if they can't get a Vladar trade done, Dustin Wolf's going to have to start the season in the minors. So
I don't know if I can see a situation where Tampa can take the Vladar contract.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, but it's also, I mean, that's kind of the only goalie out there right now. They could take a swing on who can be a not like a legit starter, but a guy that can put up a lot of wins for you until Vasilevsky comes back. Whereas I think with Martin Jones or Spencer Martin, you're kind of taking a big risk and hoping that it pays off. And I think if you get a guy like Martin Jones or Spencer Martin, you're probably getting like you honestly might even be able to get like a 12-3 record with them while Vasi's out, but then you're still getting like a 8.70 save percentage and like a 3.0 goals against type of thing. Like it's going to be the team's going to have to really do all the heavy lifting with one of those guys. I think as much as I like Martin Jones and Spencer Martin, I don't see them, especially in the Atlantic Division as well, to really be able to actually like carry the team if the team's struggling for a game. You can't get that from them.
Yeah, and I'm currently just sorting by news and Googling Brian Elliott, just seeing if he's done anything yet.
I don't even know what he's doing anymore.
Looks like he's still a free agent. He hasn't said he's retiring, but it's possible we bring him back just because he's been around, but definitely hasn't played well enough that we'd want him to be our starter.
Yeah, exactly right.
We've got Hugo Elnefelt in the AHL, who has been really good. He was pretty good 2 years ago, and he really took a step last year. I don't know if he's ready for the NHL, and he's pretty young. I think he's like 22, 23. Okay. But he looks like he's going to be, at the very least, a serviceable backup. It looks like he's going to be the backup for the future for Vasi. Mm-hmm. So it might be neat to see him be able to slot into quite a few games and get a couple of reps under his belt.
Well, I think if if they can't go out and find anyone, he's probably the guy that gets the call. Maybe who's their current backup now, just in general.
I think so last season it was Brian Elliott, but they let his contract expire. I believe it was Johansson.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah. So I mean, if you take him,
I honestly hadn't heard much about him before that, but yeah, I believe he came from. Did he come from Edmonton or was it Colorado? Johansson came over from. I saw a lot of people. Yeah, I saw a lot of people from that were fans of the team that he came from saying that they're surprised Tampa's taking a swing on him because he didn't look great. Which doesn't give me a ton of hope.
He was with Colorado, yeah.
But maybe if he splits some games with Alnefelt, maybe we try and squeeze in some other guys, or we pick somebody up. Mm-hmm. Realistically, all we have to do is you can aim to go 500. You try and not have more losses than you have wins in that time when Vasi's gone, and you're good.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're going 500 with 900 or worse goaltending, as soon as Vasi's back, it's going to be better.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically just holding off and trying to at least stay afloat until Vasi comes back, and then that things are going to turn around quickly.
Yeah.
It's an interesting, decision Tampa has to make now. They've never really had this uncertainty when it comes to their goaltending situation in the last little while.
Yeah, it's especially because, generally, not only has Vasi been an absolute Iron Man for the past 6 years at this point, but, McElhaney was good enough that if Vasi was out for a week, he could pick up the slack. Elliott, up until last year, was that good. You know, we never had a great backup, but they were always good enough.
You were never paying a backup more than league minimum.
Yeah.
That's how they
I
save
think Elliott was making $950K and McElhaney was making 900.
Yeah.
And so the first time when we don't really have one of those just veteran guys that's just hanging out, now all of a sudden we're kind of at a loss. But you know what?
Yeah.
Maybe there's a good young guy who could be thinking, if I can get my foot in the door, I'll take a cheap deal to start 20 games for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and that could really prove something for myself for the rest of my career, you know?
Yeah.
Because right now, Vladar is kind of in no man's land, but could you imagine if he decided to, get bought out, or I don't think he'd fully go Zadina route and bet on himself by terminating the contract for it, but
I don't think the Flames would. I don't think they'd want to take on that cap casualty.
Yeah.
The Flames would rather just put him on waivers and see if someone claims him.
And you know what? Maybe that would be good for Tampa if that happened, if nobody claims him. And then, because what happens if he goes through waivers? He's not a free agent. He's just in the AHL, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what happens to his cap hit down there? Is it like half?
I'm not fully sure. I think it may depend kind of on details
on
within
the contract. I was going to say, I think it might be different contract to contract.
Yeah, I think he's on a one-way deal, which I don't know fully how that works, but I know with two-way deals, it's like if you play in the NHL, you're making X amount. If you're playing in the AHL, you make Y amount, and they're very different values. So I'm not sure how it works with guys that are on one-way deals and making over $2 million a year type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm kind of hoping they go out and pick up somebody and don't just try and do it from within. I think it could be all right from within with Johansson and Alnefelt, but I'd like to see them take a chance on some dude who's willing to take a two-way $900K, $950K deal for 1 year.
I think if a trade doesn't happen, they're probably going to take like a Spencer Martin or Martin Jones type of thing. I just see them going for that more kind of known, not really much for Spencer Martin, but more Martin Jones, kind of just that veteran guy who you know what you're getting, rather than taking a chance on a younger guy. Because then if it really doesn't pan out, then you're in a really tough spot. And then you also have to consider, if you're bringing in a guy and he's playing, the NHL team, when he goes down to the AHL, he's taking away a spot from one of those guys down there now, because they're not going to send him down and have him not play all of a sudden. So I think they're probably going to take a chance on a veteran and hope that they can either bounce back or, just be serviceable enough to get through this tough, little gap for the next 8 to 10 weeks. I think they said something like that.
Yeah, 8 to 10. I believe they said 8. I don't know if it's 8 to 10 from now or 8 to 10 from the start of the season. But
I think it's 8 to 10 weeks from now, which is kind of why most reporters are saying they got to get through 8 weeks type of thing, because we still got a little bit about 2 weeks before the season starts. But again, with rehab, it could be quicker, could take a little bit longer. It's it's never in an exact known amount of time.
Yeah,
but
and
something to keep an eye on.
So with regarding Martin Jones, he's with Toronto right now, currently, right?
Yeah, and in training camp right now, they have him with kind of their AHL squad. they've now kind of broken up into their different groups, and he's with a lot of their AHL guys. So it's kind of looking like he'll, be going to the AHL, and he'll have to be placed on waivers to do so.
Right.
It's also another guy, actually. I believe he's with Buffalo again, is Aaron Dell, who I think he's on a PTO with them right now. So if it doesn't work out with Buffalo, I could see him maybe being a guy that that Tampa looks to.
Yeah, I would absolutely see if he could kick tires on him and see if he could try
And
it.
it would be a
Can
cheaper
you?
deal.
Yeah,
Oh, he's with Columbus on a PTO right now.
you're not allowed to give a guy a PTO and like they play in actual games, right? That's only like
No, yeah,
like
only in training
practices
camp
and stuff like that.
preseason.
Yeah, that'd
Because
be
like even
that'd be
last
funny
year,
to see.
like he didn't like Aaron Dell only got 4 um NHL games played, really kind of 3 because he came in halfway through one. But I mean, a 2.71 goals against, a 9.13 on one of the worst teams in the league, being the Sharks, and an 0-3 record. Like the wins aren't there, but the numbers actually aren't terrible. And if you put him in front of a team like Tampa, I think you could actually get some pretty good value out of a guy that you could get for league minimum.
Yeah,
So there is options for him. There's a couple of different routes they can take.
yeah. I find it funny that because obviously with Vasilevsky being a top goalie in the league, as with every player in the league when they're high up, people find a way to criticize one way or another.
Yeah.
And things like Draisaitl being a power play merchant, that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
one thing that a lot of people say is Vasilevsky's only ever played on top tier Tampa teams. And it's so funny hearing that because watching it, it's like we play solid defense once they are in our zone generally, but off the rush, like with some games we'll give up 5 or 6 breakaways, 2-on-1, stuff like that. And it's like that's when you see how good Vasi is at stopping those odd man rushes, those really high danger chances. So if you can have one of those games where that doesn't happen too often, it'd be fine. But like the amount of times last year where we would be playing Brian Elliott and we let in 5 goals and one of them's on the power play and the other 4 are breakaways, and it's just like, man, when you don't have Vasi in and they're getting breakaways nonstop, it's kind of brutal.
Yeah, exactly right. There's always a couple sides to all of it, but yeah, I'm very just interested to see the way that Tampa Bay decides to take the situation, and whatever way they do, how does it end up working out for them?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. What did we have next on the docket here? We had Calgary.
Whatever you want to do, we can go whatever we want. Yeah, it's very fitting. Go from Tampa to Calgary. There we go.
Yeah. So they re-signed. They officially re-signed for 4.5 for 2 years.
Yeah.
What's his name? Mikael Backlund.
New
I was thinking of Michael Stone, and I knew that was wrong.
And we can talk about a Stone later if we want, being in Mark Stone, because he's a little bit of a fucking crybaby right now. But we'll dive into that later. All in due time.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, he was the clear-cut best choice to be the captain, and I said it the whole time. But I said, also that you've got to actually know that he wants to be around and part of the organization, and to sign a 2-year deal and on a little bit of a cheaper cap hit than what was expected and from what he's making now. And then just even his interviews, like it's very clear that he wants to be in Calgary and wants to be a part of this organization. So I think this is the picture perfect choice for the Flames.
Yeah, it's especially with team as turbulent recently as the Flames. You know, Daryl Sutter being polarizing in the locker room. They lost Gaudreau. They lost Kachuk. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's good to have a guy who is so reportedly good for the locker room to be sticking around.
Also
especially
within the city itself.
Because he just won the did he win the King Clancy this year?
If that's for like the best within their
the like top guy within their community for doing stuff. I believe he did.
Doing good stuff, whatever you want to word it. Yeah, he did just win that. So that also tells you a lot about what he just brings to the city itself, not even just the Flames.
Yeah, he did win it this year. So that's definitely a good guy to keep around.
Some clarity on that, and they know what guy they're kind of running with now is their leader. That's kind of a big thing that, you know, has been talked about within the organization and overshadowed a lot of things. So now that they actually have that kind of big item checked off the list, now they can, you know, start to move forward with this new, you know, kind of new regime that they're building there in Calgary.
Yeah. Do you happen to know where Backlund played lineup wise for them this past year? Was he on the third line?
Yeah, he's mostly kind of a third line center, but he does get some good time on the power plays, kind of their go-to guy on the penalty kill. So like he still gets a good amount of ice time, but yeah, for the most part, he's kind of that third line center. You know, the longest time he's stuck behind, you know, Lindholm and Monahan, and now it's
Lindholm and Kadri.
Lindholm and Kadri. So,
well, yeah. So I'm just looking at his stats here. I mean, so third liner, 19 goals, 56 points, plus 24, 18 minutes and 9 seconds average ice time per game. Like, so he's definitely getting a lot on the special teams.
Yeah, well, and it's also worth knowing he's got such a good plus minus there, considering that the Flames weren't even a playoff team. Like, I know they just barely missed, but usually when you see teams, you know, missing the playoffs, you don't normally see guys with a plus minus that high.
Yeah,
so you know what you're getting from them
pretty
defensively.
Good. So
I mean, I do still think plus minus is a bit of a meaningless stat in some senses, but I mean, regardless,
you don't rely. You can't.
Like that.
You just have to take it with a grain of salt for sure. But like, you know, when a guy is an overwhelming plus, or if a guy is putting up 100 points and is minus 30, then you know something's going on more. So,
yeah. But I mean, yeah. I think it's a great choice for the Flames, though. I think that this is really going to be the start of, you know, I think the franchise has kind of been in this doom and gloom state from the moment that Gaudreau and Kachuk left. This is kind of the first, you know, big exciting news for them, and something that they can really, you know, kind of start to rally around and move into this next era that they're trying to build here, especially with, you know, new coach, new GM, all of that. It's a new wave for them.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see sooner rather than later a couple more extensions, or at least the Lindholm one. I'd love to see Elias Lindholm stick with Calgary.
Yeah, I think he's just a great fit there, and I think he'll probably, if he sticks around, he'll be the next the guy that takes over from when Backlund eventually hangs him up.
Yeah. Have you heard anything on Hanifin? I know Hanifin's been the one that a lot of people seem pretty sure that he's gone.
That one's a weird one, because he was the one guy that there was nothing about the whole time. Like, no news about him, nothing about talks. So I think a lot of people kind of just ran with that he wanted out, and just because they weren't hearing anything. But it sounds like he didn't want to talk about a contract during the summer. It sounded like he just wanted to train, you know, get better, and so on. So it'll be kind of interesting now that, you know, training camp's going on, the season's starting to get closer. If there is going to start to be some talks, you know, between the Flames and Hanifin, and see if they can maybe come together on something. Or, I mean, like Craig Conroy said, they're not going to run into a Gaudreau situation with him in charge if these guys aren't signing. They're not going to take a risk and hope, oh, maybe we'll sign him in the offseason before he maybe walks. Like, it'll be, those guys who don't have extensions come the trade deadline, regardless of where the Flames are at, they're going to be shipping them out. So those, like the Hanifin and Lindholm, are kind of time sensitive because they've really only got until the trade deadline to have something figured out.
Yeah, and I can't imagine. I mean, I know the agents are the ones doing a lot of the contract negotiations, but I can't imagine guys want to be too involved with talks unless they're getting really serious during the season.
Exactly,
they're not going to be going back and forth on numbers from now until March.
Well, it's even like, when you look at Anthony Duclair in San Jose, like he's on, the final year of his deal. He has already said that he is he is open to staying in San Jose long term, but I think the Sharks are kind of just like waiting to not only see where he kind of slots into the lineup, but if he's a good fit and whatnot. But Duclair actually does
volatile player.
When he represents himself as well, he doesn't have an agent, so any talks, it's going to be straight between the Sharks and Duclair. There's no middleman or anything. So
that's pretty rare in this day and age. Not a lot of guys do that.
So, I mean, if the Sharks want to stick around, then he's, he can hop right into talks just himself and, go from there. And I think it makes it a little bit easier on him, maybe negotiating, these talks when you don't got to worry about your agent getting a certain amount. Like, you're just negotiating for yourself here. You're not doing it for your party or anything type. So.
Right. A little bit of me wonders if that's a reason that he's bounced to so many teams over the years. Because
he only started doing it recently. Like, I think he just represented himself for his last deal. He signed over with Florida, so he really hasn't been doing it for too long.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, yeah, I think if the Flames can get Lindholm and Hanifin signed, I think that you kind of got your whole core that you're running with now for the extended future. And if they can't figure out something, then they're just gonna have to, regardless of how they're doing, they're just gonna have to rip that Band-Aid off and start to add other pieces and to kind of replace what those guys bring.
Yeah, and right before we move on, I'm just gonna throw out there, Mikael Backlund he's played his entire career with the Calgary Flames, and he's got 908 games played. So, assuming he plays the majority of the next 2 seasons that he signed with Calgary, he'll hit 1,000 games played only with that club. He's at 185 goals, so he'll hit 200 shortly if he plays enough games. He's 8 points back from 500 points, so he'll hit that. Pretty solid little career he's put together here in Calgary. That's it's good to see.
Yeah, it's huge for Calgary, and it's he's still got a lot of big moments to have with that team. So it's the perfect place for him to hit all those milestones.
One of those guys that stuck around with one place long enough that even though he's never been that superstar or game breaking talent, you start wondering once he's done, does he come back as a coach, assistant coach, a GM? He's been here for so long that
yeah, exactly right.
You could definitely see it.
Yeah. But aside from that, what else did we want to dive into? There's not a whole lot. Like, a lot of it's just kind of preseason stuff, and teams aren't doing anything crazy, or they're just kind of figuring out their lines and all that kind of fun shit right now.
A lot of goofy games right now in the preseason.
2 more things to kind of talk about. I think
I know you said you had something, and then we've got the EA Sports ratings.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah, that was the other one. Yeah. We can do this one I got here first, just because it's not as long. I don't have the full list, but I have kind of the big highlighted ones that I took away from it. So recently, uh, the Athletic, which is quickly growing but also kind of slowly dying due to layoffs and
Yeah.
whatnot. But the Athletic is basically the subscription based news source for kind of all things sports. And one of the big things they did at the start of this season was they took 51 NHL players and they asked them what rule changes, if you could make one rule change in the league, what would you choose?
Yeah,
And so I've got a couple here.
I saw a
I thought
highlight of
were
this, but I
interesting.
didn't actually end up going through. I think I saw like one or two of them.
Yeah, and there's a couple of good ones, and then a couple ones that don't make sense. But the big one, this was from both Johnny Gaudreau and Jack Eichel. This one I think everybody agrees with. They wanted to get rid of the shootout and just have it be 3-on-3 overtime until someone scores to win the game, which I think everybody in the entire world agrees with that. Nobody really wants a shootout to stick around. As cool as it can
anybody
be.
who watches a lot of games, the people who are watching upwards of 40 games a year want this to happen. The only people left advocating for it are the people who only catch the highlights and they see a sick goal every once in a while in the shootout and they're like, the shootout's just fun. But in reality, it's a very deflating end to a game that you've sat there watching for 60 minutes of play and then the overtime as well. So
yeah,
it's because I remember, maybe I don't even know if it's as long as 10 years ago when this movement of people wanting the shootout to go away started, like gaining a lot of traction. But now it's just like accepted as almost fact that like if you're a hockey fan, 99% of the time you're going to want this rule change. Like it's pretty well known at this point. So it really only seems like a matter of time before it actually gets changed. Maybe with the next CBA, they'll say, you know what, we're changing some rules too.
I think as long as Gary Bettman's around, the shootout's not going anywhere.
Well, you know what?
It's going to have to be post Gary Bettman.
Well, you know what? Whoever comes in after Bettman, that's an absolute layup. You come in and you say, hey, guess what? We're getting rid of the shootout. And immediately you're starting off on a good foot with everyone.
Yeah.
So you know what?
Exactly.
That's just a layup for the next guy if that's the case. Which hopefully the next guy comes sooner rather than later.
Yeah. This next one I don't really agree with. I can see the reasoning behind it, but I don't like it. Josh Morrissey of the Winnipeg Jets said that goals should not end power plays. Meaning, if you're on the power play and you score, you're still on the power play, and that other player can't leave the box. I don't like that. I think it's fine just the way it is. If you're on the power play and it's only a 2-minute penalty and you score, it's done. I'm fine with if it's a 5-minute major. It's a continuous power play because Vegas obviously doesn't know how to handle that.
I do love that trade-off of like, if it's just a penalty, you get one goal, that sucks for you, and now we're moving on. But I really do like if you do something egregious enough to get 5 minutes, then you're SOL. They can pepper you for as many as they want.
Exactly. And the reason I think this one will never happen is because there's always so much like controversy around penalties, especially, we see with players diving, like a Tim Stützle, or even just like tripping ones that happen. Like teams and fans would be like irate if a garbage phantom tripping call happens and then the other team puts up 3 goals in that 2-minute power play.
I hadn't even considered that.
Like, that can happen.
That's a great point.
I think there would just be too much backlash on that. So I don't ever see that happening. I think it's fine just the way it is.
Yeah, that's definitely a good way of putting it. You really laid it out well there. It's just there's too much scoring now, and the power plays are especially so deadly that it would really suck if the entire game got changed off of one tripping call, especially if it's like not a real call or a phantom call,
Exactly right.
something stupid or controversial in any way. Because God, does it suck going online after you watched a good hockey game and all anyone talks about is the refs. It's like,
Yeah,
man, a guy made a sick
exactly
play
right.
earlier and nobody's talking about it because somebody got screwed over.
Yeah. The next one, I can see the argument for both ways. Philip Forsberg of the Nashville Predators, he wants to remove back to backs from the schedule, meaning you can't play on back to back nights. You get at least one day in between games at the very least.
I mean, that's just kind of one of those things that's a bit above my pay grade. I don't know how feasible it is to set up 82 games in a season, none of them on the same night. But if it's possible, I'd like to think it'd be good for the game. You're going to get a better product. There's not going to be guys going out there dogging it, guys being more tired. You're going to get a fresh guy every night. If it's logistically possible, it would be good, but I don't know if it is.
I think that the thing is I don't ever see this happening only because the NHL has implemented so many things. Like they do have the All-Star, weekend, which you kind of lose about 4 or 5 days from that. You've also got if the Olympics, I mean, that doesn't really affect the NHL, so that one doesn't matter. But even what they're starting to introduce for teams is once during the season, teams get like a bye week. So they've got a whole week off of no games. Whereas if you remove back to backs, all of a sudden you're not going to have that, whole week off that teams get. So
right.
I don't know. And I also see it like
I'd love to know what the players think of that. If
yep.
If they polled the players, would you rather have this 1 week off or would you rather never get double gamed in days back to back? Like, I'd love to know what the voting on that would look like.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of guys would prefer, especially when you if you're a team from the East Coast and you're going over to California and doing that road trip, I think a lot of guys would rather just, go, you land games 1 and 2 of it, whatever. Teams who play one day off and then you play that, the third team, and then it's, you're gone and on your way and you're heading back home rather than
you land on Monday and you play the Ducks. Tuesday is the Sharks, and then Thursday you play the Kings and you get the fuck back home. Like, it that second game there might suck, but maybe the guys like having the road trips overall be shorter because of it.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, this one, this one doesn't really matter too much. It doesn't affect the game at all or anything. But Clayton Keller just said that there should be no dress code on game days, which I'm indifferent on. Like that can go either way. Whatever the players want, I say just let them do what they want.
Yeah, I definitely don't think there should be dress codes. Just because I think that means if there is a dress code, it's because the guys want to and they want to be like, let's all the boys dress up together. Like, if all the guys are like, we don't fucking care, like, then they shouldn't have to do it. But if all the team, wants to, we show up in our uniform the same way we, go out onto the ice kind of thing, then, it'd be cool to see teams it just give every team a little bit more of an identity.
Yeah, but I think if you do it, I almost feel like you have to go the route of like, if teams and players can decide as a team, you either got to decide either we're all doing it or like none of us are type of thing. Because I think it would just be weird if, you've got one guy coming in with his suit and all and his teammates behind him in shorts and a t-shirt type of thing. I don't know. I think that would just it'd be a little goofy, and I think it would just be more important to just have it be a collective team decision and be like, we're either rolling this way or this way. There's no, half in, half out type of thing.
I think it's one of those things where it's just so many young guys, especially our age, don't care about doing that kind of thing, and some of the older guys that are still around might just be, this is how it's always been. So, this is how we do it. I wouldn't think it's that weird if, Crosby's going into the room in a suit, but they got, Braden Yeager going in his jeans and band t-shirt or something. I don't think it'd be that weird. But
I just like the idea of it being a collective team identity type of thing, and you're all kind of rolling on the same page. But
in my mind, I see it as a win-win. Either the team gains this identity of all doing one or the other, or everyone does their own thing, and they all kind of get that feeling of a little bit more individual identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
That's an interesting one that they mentioned.
This next one, I like the idea of it, but I firmly believe that it shouldn't ever happen. But Tage Thompson says that kick goals, so basically kicking the puck into the net, should be allowed. Which I like the idea of it, but I don't think that should ever become a rule. Just because then, even if you make it kicking it like legal, you still got a whole bunch of gray area you have to cover. Of okay, what's the definition of a kick then? Like, can guys, just full on as hard as they can boot it? Because then I think you're just running into a lot of potential injury risks for guys getting down blocking shots in the goalie, and like but then it's tough because then you could be like, well, if it's like right there and you give it a little bit of a tap, that's fine, but then refs always call stuff differently, so then you're going to run into controversy of now, like, oh well, look, they allowed this kick the other night, but now tonight this kick wasn't allowed. Like, what? And then it's just a whole
I mean, it's already a whole thing with the whole kicking motion thing now, but personally, I think the exact opposite. I am so sick of, oh, he was stopping, so it should be a goal. Oh, kicking motion, it's not a goal. You know what? If we're worried about the health, especially of the goalies with kicking, it's always a no-goal. If the puck goes off your foot for any reason and into the net, it's a no-goal. It can't go in off your foot. Like, but what if it goes in on accident? Then it was an accident and he didn't mean to score. Who cares? Like, you know what? Just take him out completely. And you know what? If it bounces off his foot, try and get your stick on it and poke it over the line first, and then it'll be a goal. Like,
there's just so much gray area with it that just can't. It would never be perfect. You would still, again, you'd still be in the same situation they're in now of it. So I don't ever see that happening. I like the idea of it, but I just don't see a way that they can ever do it and have it work properly.
Yeah, I think there'd just be too much risk. I do get where he's coming from, saying that, like, it's a skillful move to be able to kick the puck in the net. I mean, it's way harder to kick it in the net than shoot, right? But you can't just have everyone crash in the net. The goalie's already down, a guy falls over because there's a scrum, a guy's laying down to block a shot, and all of a sudden these guys are kicking with their knife shoes. That's pretty dangerous. Yeah, I just don't think you could do that.
This one is probably the one I actually... Okay, the second one I hate the most on this list. I'm saving the one I'd think is the worst for the very end. And it's interesting, this one comes from a defenseman. This comes from Charlie McAvoy. And his proposed rule change is you can't ice the puck on the penalty kill. So, like, if you're on the penalty kill, you have to treat it just like you're 5-on-5. And I just don't like that. I think, if you're on the penalty kill, I don't know. I think it's more than fair that you're allowed to ice it, especially then if you add this in and whatever, you're up against the Oilers and they've been cycling it on you for a minute, and your guys are dog tired and they ice it. Now all of a sudden it's like, now Oilers can send out fresh guys there, and now you've got 4 guys out there who are dog tired. So not only are you short-handed, but your guys are gassed and the other team's got fully rested guys. I just don't. I get the idea of it's to add more goals, like have the power plays produce more, but I think scoring in the league is pretty good right now where it's at. Like,
yeah, that's the thing. I definitely get where he's coming from with it, because sometimes it can be really easy to kill off a penalty, and Arguably, it shouldn't. If you broke the rules of the game, maybe it should be hard. Maybe you should be dog tired. I would like to see some sort of hybrid thing. Maybe they make it so icing is still a thing, but when you're on the penalty kill, you only have to get to the blue line instead of the red line. Or even like if they make a dotted line from where the hash marks are across the ice, and you just have to get halfway past. You have to get past the in the zone face-off dot, and then you can ice it. So you can't like grab it in your corner and throw it, but you only have to go. What would that be? 10 feet forward, and then you can ice it, something like that.
Or even if you do something when you
see something like that, but I don't know if the league needs it.
No, but you could even do something like when you can ice it, but you can't. So it can't hit the boards or something. Like it has to be light enough that it doesn't go all the way down and touch the boards on the other end. But again, I think you're going to run into those situations where it's coming down and it looks like it might have hit, but it doesn't. And then if it hits the corner, then again, it's just one of those ones that.
Or maybe you make it so if you ice it on the penalty kill, you can't change. So McAvoy shoots it down, and all his buddies go change, but that one guy has to stay out there. Maybe you could do something like that, but at that point, it might just be making rules just for the sake of making new rules.
Yeah, exactly, and I don't think the refs want to have to now focus on whoever it is that iced the puck. Like sometimes you've got a scrum and someone just gets a backhand on it and lobs it way out, and then now you're trying to figure out, well, now who was it? Like who do I decide can't change type of thing. I've only got 3 more left on here, and these 3 are all kind of. Well, these next 2, I can see the argument behind them. But so this one comes from Seth Jarvis on Carolina, and he says that refs should be available for interviews after games.
100%.
See, so I disagree.
Really?
And I disagree for a couple reasons.
Okay.
The first one being, if you implement this rule, you have to pay every single ref way more money. Because if the refs are going to have to be subjected to interviews in the bright lights and stuff like the players, they need to be compensated for that. And secondly, we're already running into an era, especially in like youth hockey right now, where finding refs is super hard. And the NHL is eventually going to run into that problem because there's not as many up-and-coming refs. So it could eventually become something that's pretty easy to get into just due to it being such a small field. And I think having that of, if you're a ref, you're forced to now do interviews and have all the bright lights on you. I think that could, potentially scare a decent amount off from doing that because they want to just ref hockey because they love the game. They don't want to get caught up in all this interview stuff and being forced to do all that. So I see the idea.
I don't think it's fair to give the refs that when they don't give that to the players, though. Players have in their contracts have a certain amount of contractually obligated media availability. And even if you're a quiet guy, you don't want to go talk to nobody, you're just really good at hockey and ended up playing in the NHL, you got to go do those media availabilities because that's just how the NHL is. You got to put yourself out there a couple times a year at least.
Also making way more money than refs, which again is why I'm saying you have to handsomely pay every ref and linesman more money.
True, but I mean, so if you increase it by, whatever they're making now to 1.2, times the amount, like 20% raise across the board, that's quite a bit of extra money there that those refs are making for an extra. How long would it take to interview the refs? How much are you going to ask them? An extra, probably 15 minutes of interviews, so call it an extra half hour of work after the game.
I also think, though, the other issue would be for the refs is every question is going to be about like missed calls or something.
Yeah.
Like it's never going to be anything positive. So it's basically them after every game now being subjected to people telling them basically that they're shit at their job almost.
Well, so that's why it would obviously have to be, actual, the people with the media credentials they let in. You can't just let every guy wearing a Matthews jersey show up and say, "Hey, why'd you screw us?" It's got to be guys that are going to phrase it in a way where they're not outright being a dick, but also,
But there's so many guys
ask
that
it in a fair way. And if the
yeah,
guys
there's
are
so
not going
many
to do
guys that
that,
wouldn't
then
do that.
you fire them and you get new guys in there that aren't going to be like that.
But that's the thing is, I don't think the teams necessarily care if their guys are asking those questions.
Well, then
And
if that's the case, you take it out of the team's hands, and as the NHL, Gary Bettman, then he should be the one being like, okay, we'll send these guys because.
But see,
if
then
the teams do
you're
their job.
into a dictatorship type of thing of now the commissioner's choosing who's allowed to interview and whatnot. So, and I also think a big thing is just a lot of it's going to be the same responses of like, the call came from Toronto. Like we went with, they reviewed it with all their screens and they gave us, this result. And so we just had to announce it type of thing.
I guess, but that's just that would be more than we have now. Right now, I don't know what any of the refs think about things. Like, I don't know if they would just be saying I didn't see it every time, or if they'd be thinking I don't call it the exact same way that other refs call it. To me, that's not interference or something like that. Like, I really don't know. And it would be kind of neat because it would give a little bit of personality to some of the refs, and you'd actually, then,
I don't think
at the start of the game when they're saying that, this ref and this ref are coaching, you can go, okay, these guys call a bit of a tighter ship, maybe it'll be a lot more penalties in the first, guys learn, and then in the second, third, it's a bit tidied up or something like that. Or, maybe for the Battle of Alberta, you get the loose cannons out there and you go, oh, this is going to be a shit show.
See, but I think like when you watch a game, how often at the end of the game can you be like, these were the refs and these were the linesmen, unless it's like a Wes McCauley.
Yeah. Yeah, like never.
So when you've got all these, keyboard warriors online, and we've seen the lengths that people go to say stuff. I think when, people are complaining, it's just like, oh, the refs sucked. Like the refs did this. I think if you start giving out, and making it very public and clear who the refs are, all these guys that watch are then going to, start name dropping. And we've seen the lengths people go to, send messages and post stuff. And I think it's just a lot of stuff that the refs don't want to deal with. And I think it's stuff that the league doesn't really want refs to have to deal with.
I think they're in enough of a position of power that they should have to. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be financially at least compensated for that or something. But a side note, they should definitely be paid more when a game goes to overtime. I'm pretty sure they don't get paid extra for that.
No, I don't think they do. Maybe
like imagine going to 5 OT in the playoffs and just like you're just doing this for free. Like that sucks. But
I get the idea of it. I think just don't see a way it can ever actually be a fully functioning idea. Like you're just going to run into it's just there's going to be so like constant problem solving within it. So then it's really you're getting the product out that people want, but now you're also dealing with all these other things. So it's like I do see the pros and cons to it. Like I definitely see the argument for it, but I think there's just too many negatives that come out of it.
That's fair.
That's not the first. It wouldn't be the first time the NHL's done, something like that.
Yeah, they make questionable calls all the time. Looking at George Peros being in charge of player safety.
The second last one I have, it's very fitting that it's from Sidney Crosby. His one was bring back the red line, basically meaning you can't make a pass across center ice. Which
okay.
It's never going to happen because the NHL loves those, big long stretch passes for breakaways and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I see the premise of it.
That Crosby wants that.
Yeah, well, and I think his
generational
reason behind it is to remove those stretch passes that can lead into suicide passes, resulting in a majority of the concussions that happen in the league are from, passes up center ice and a guy gets cranked while receiving it, or the pass is in his feet behind him and he gets looking down and then gets blown up. So like I can see why he wants that, just to reduce injuries, especially head injuries, which are the most severe. But I don't see the league doing it because they love their, big stretch passes and they create those highlight reel goals that people
Yeah.
always go to.
Yeah. I mean, McDavid just, I think it was earlier today, got or maybe it was yesterday, got a sweet OT winner here in the preseason. Pass
Yeah, he did.
from just below his blue line up to him who was skating along the other team's blue line, went in, dangled the goalie. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it creates a lot of exciting goals. I can't imagine that they'll ever go back to that unless scoring gets really out of hand. But
And then it's also, again, like all of these, there's just that gray area again if it's, a pass and it's caught kind of like right on the goal or the like center ice, or maybe it's like a touch over and then, play gets blown down and then there's argument of no, it was on the line or it wasn't fully over. And then I think it just really kind of slows the game down. I think, 'cause
guess,
I think
but
what
so they would
happened.
probably just go with the same rules they do with offsides, right? Like almost every rule that they have at this point, like there's ways you could be like, well, should it be this or is it like this? And at the end of the day, the refs just kind of make the call, and
I
I
think
mean, none of us have a time machine, so we just move on, right?
you have to bring another ref in, I think, though, to specifically do that. Because I think
Well,
that'd be very, when you've got your linesman on opposite sides up, to have one, positioned on center ice, and then if a guy catches the pass and quickly turns up the ice with a teammate, the ref's got to like get over to that blue line now quickly and make sure it's not offside. And then I think that could also affect, potential offsides happening that don't get called.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so if I was an NHLer and they asked me this question, my answer, as somebody who's not in the NHL, at least what I think it would be, is that they definitely need another ref watching the game. They need two more refs. One watching the feed that we are all watching at home, and one that is watching from up in the, maybe not up in the press box, but like in a eye in the sky type view where they can see more. And they both have a phone down to the penalty box, and this guy goes, "Hey, I saw this watching the feed that millions of people at home are watching. People are going to be pissed because you missed a high stick on behind on the play." And you say, we're rolling the clock back 20 seconds and this guy has a 2-minute. And
yeah, I never see that. And because again, I think then you just really, I think you just run into a lot of problems with that happening. Like I get it, it would balance out both sides, but I think you could potentially run into then you've got also have all these guys calling it the same way. Like it's pretty bad if, especially with guys embellishing, if you've got a guy that sees it happen on TV and calls it in, and then they run it back 30 seconds, call the penalty, but then turns out it was never even an actual high stick. It was a guy diving. Then you're.
But then, so refs make wrong calls on the ice all the time. That's just human error. That's going to happen. But I think it would do a lot more good for the game than it would hurt. And maybe make a small list of rules they can't call if the ref missed it. You could give them embellishment. The things like the misconducts for saying something to players. Maybe they heard wrong on the broadcast or something. But
the thing is if a guy in the sky sees it and calls it, then the refs have to actually pull out the iPad and review it to be like, this guy said it was a high stick. We need to see if the other guy was embellishing, or if there was no high stick and it was just embellishing.
Well, they don't have to. They don't have to review it. The other guy's a ref. If you have the ref in the sky, he's a ref just as much as the guys on the ice. I think again, if one ref makes the call, then it goes.
When you're further away, like if you're up close, it's one thing. But I think if you're watching it from afar, it's.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because I'd be pissed.
In my mind, they've already reviewed it on the iPad. Like the guy up there, as soon as he sees something, he doesn't just go, "Oh, that's a penalty." He calls down and he's like watching on the iPad, and by that point, he's already watched it and reviewed it.
I just think that would get old though if you're watching games and it's, because it would probably happen quite often that they have to blow the buzzer and be like, now we got to I think it's bad for the game if you're running into situations where you have to keep moving the clock back and adding time back on. I think it just kind of slows the pace of the game.
You would 100% need to have a limit on that. If it happened more than 20 or 30 seconds ago, it's out of our hands, and it happened a while ago. You can't be like 3 minutes ago this happened, because that would be brutal.
Enough time to get it on the iPad and actually fully break down what happened and make a definitive call. I don't know. Like I mean, by no means is the way that it works perfect. I think there are ways that it can be improved. It's just, I think that's something that's got to be like a big, a whole month-long thing that they got to sit down and figure out the best possible way to move
this is just me like throwing out what I think would work ish. Like, they would, over years of seeing what works best, these penalties can be called by the guy in the sky, but these ones seem like they're more often wrong, or they're just like not applicable in these scenarios, and this is how much time on average they need to see it, so maybe we give them 10 more seconds than that. Something like that. Like, I definitely do not have specifics in mind for it, but that's the general skeleton of a rule change, I think, would be good.
I agree with what you're saying to an extent. I just think I never want to see the NHL come to a point where it's the game's just getting stopped and then, the clock's having to be moved back. I never want to see that happen.
Yeah.
In the game, I like the, you're playing that 20 minutes of hockey. You're not playing, if certain, calls get made, you're not playing, 21 minutes and 30 seconds or something in a period type of thing.
Yeah. I'm also would hope in that scenario that, those guys chiming in on reviews and stuff would maybe speed the process up. It doesn't happen super often, but way more often than it should. Last year there was like how many reviews last year were there on goals that went like 8+ minutes? It was at least like 5, which is it shouldn't happen at all. That's forever. Imagine being in the stands for that crap. Like, especially if you're waiting that entire time and then get an unsatisfactory answer on the mic and they're just like, there's no goal, and you're like, well, what were they even reviewing this whole time? Like, those huge breaks really suck.
And I know exactly which play you're talking about. That's the one where the puck got flipped over and it hit the netting, but they couldn't find the.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember the whole thing, but it was very clear that it did hit the net in the end. They just had to make sure they had that definitive angle to.
They had to get the right angle to be able to see the net, because on camera they purposefully make it hard to see the net so you can see the ice better.
Yeah, well, not only that, I'm pretty sure the area they were at was it was black netting, I think.
Yeah,
or something like that. So it was like black on black.
Yeah,
so it was even tougher to
Panthers Lightning game 2 playoffs ago.
Yeah.
Because that was the same game that was the first goal that got called off, and then the second goal got called off, and then when Pat Maroon scored our third goal, all 5 guys just sat there staring at the jumbotron, making sure it was a good goal.
Yeah. So the final one here, this one I think is very funny because it comes from Jacob Trouba, who he's kind of known for being a lot of people are quickly the cheer for the Rangers are starting to be against him just because of his huge cap hit, but his rule change is to just eliminate the salary cap altogether.
I've heard so many sides to this one. Like, obviously there's 2 main sides, either you want it or you don't. I have no idea what the NHL would look like without a salary cap.
I get his reasonings behind it. He does actually make very solid arguments, and that being that the salary cap does prevent, some players from getting paid what they're worth. Like, I think in terms of what McDavid does out there, he should be getting paid way more, but he obviously can't because of the salary cap. And then it also just restricts players' movement. And his last point was it makes like the NHL trade deadline less exciting compared to other leagues because again, there's certain movement restrictions. due to salary cap and contracts. But I mean, if you eliminate the salary cap, you're just going to see, you know, all these players go to New York, you know, LA, Toronto type of thing, and get paid, you know, because those teams make a lot of money, so they can spend a lot of money on players, and then you just run into all of these super teams basically, and then you've got teams like Arizona and maybe even Minnesota that not a lot of guys now want to go to, and they're like, I can go here and get paid way more money and be in a bigger market type of thing. So
I don't want to talk too much on this just because I don't feel like I know enough on the ins and outs to do it justice. But the majority of people that I personally know have a lot of knowledge of like a more in depth than a fan could get knowledge of how the NHL works, and people within the league almost unanimously seem to think it would be a good thing, not only for the players but for the league and like for the product, if they got rid of the salary cap. I'm not going to pretend to remember, you know, because you know I've listened to podcasts where they talk about it, and you know they always have one guy playing devil's advocate because you know the main thing is, well, what about, you know, is Toronto just going to pay fucking every single good player and have them all in one place? And I honestly do not remember, like, I remember it being confusing as fuck, but they seemed to have very good reasons on why it wouldn't happen like that. There was a lot of, you know, almost lawyer talk involved.
I just think you could really run into those scenarios where, you know, say, I'll use the Rangers because the Rangers fucking love going out and grabbing any big name available.
New York.
But like, what's to stop them from, you know, going when free agency hits, going to the top, you know, 8 players and being like, hey, we'll pay each of you 10 million for one season. I'll come here. Let's band together and win a cup, and then, you know, you guys can do what you want after that type of thing.
So,
which
to my knowledge,
could maybe happen.
To my knowledge, the MLB has no salary cap, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so how does it work there? Like, are I really don't keep that close of an eye on the Major League Baseball. Are there like super teams? Is it always the same 5 in the finals, or?
I'm not 100% sure. I've only really been getting into watching baseball much kind of within the last year and a half.
Okay.
But like I know that like the Yankees were super good for the longest time, and it makes sense because they bring in the most revenue out of any team, so naturally they've got, you know, a lot more money that they can spend on level.
I feel like I feel like I've always heard it like the Yankees have just been the best since like every year that started with a 1. Like before 2000s, they were just always the best because they always bought the best players. But like,
I know they're just missing out on the playoffs this year.
I was gonna say, I feel like I hear about more teams nowadays. You know, I hear about other teams doing well, and not just the Yankees, which isn't how it's been for quite a while. So, yeah, I don't know, but I definitely get looking to get paid more at the very least.
I also say the thing is, though, is so he says that the salary cap, you know, restricts players from getting paid what they're worth. So then, I'm trying to think of a good way to word. So then, do you get rid of the whole RFA UFA type of thing? Because say you're a player like Trevor Zegras right now, and there's no salary cap, the Ducks still own his rights.
You would have to get rid of it. There's no way a guy's getting paid fairly if he can't go to a different team.
Exactly, right? But then, so now, say you're, you know, Chicago, and you got Bedard, he could realistically in 3 years be like, yeah, I'm just leaving because I can go here and they're offering me way more money type of thing.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe it's more of a arbitration type thing, you know? when guys go to arbitration and this third party judges their value and then awards them the contract. Maybe young guys have that.
But those
It's
are
like
one-year
you have to
deals.
get your next contract with the team that drafted you, but these other guys are deciding how much based on your first 3 years.
But those are only 1-year deals. And I don't think with these players you can be like, the arbitrator is like, yeah, you're getting, $6 million for the next 3 years or something.
You could
like, the arbitration can only ever work with 1-year deals, and that's because the teams and players go into that knowing, we're going to go back and forth on this, but at the end of the day, it's only going to be a 1-year deal, and then whatever happens, next year happens, type of thing. Especially because I think you'd be irate if you were, you watch this guy get, $8 million for 1 year, and then all of a sudden you see a guy and he gets, like a $7 million for 4 years, and it's like, well, I'd rather have that guy at, $7 million for 4 years. So I think there's just way too many. I don't think it'll ever happen. I think the NHL likes it the way that it is. You can make the
they
change
like it the way it is because they're screwing over the players a good bit.
I mean, yeah, but I think it delivers a better product. But I will say that it should be, from start of the regular season to the very end of the playoffs, the salary cap exists. It's not just magically now gone in the playoffs. Yeah,
they definitely. I don't know why there's no salary cap in the playoffs. That is so goofy to me.
Yeah, or then you even do, if I was the players, you can make the argument be like, okay, you sign your contract and say you're McDavid and you're making 12.5 for the regular season, but come playoffs, his salary increases by this amount or something, because there's no salary cap, so he should be getting paid what he's worth, when he delivers in the playoffs, type of thing. But I think just being the salary cap is always in effect from start of regular season, end of playoffs would be the best way to do it. But I don't know why they haven't.
Yeah, that would be so cool to see, because some guys, they have their performance bonuses, hit 60 points on the year and you get an extra $1 million or something. That would be really cool to see, like a guy be like, okay, but you're going to give me an extra $10 million if I put up 20 points in any single postseason for you, or something like that. Exactly. I'm going to make absolute bank if I haul your team to a cup. That would be really cool to see.
Yeah. But those were some of the big rule changes that were proposed by players. I think I disagreed with the majority of them. I do like some of them, but again, I do like the way the NHL is now. Like I'm not oblivious to the fact that there are certain changes that need to be made. But I think we'll continue to see changes to the game over time, regardless. Like there's always going to be.
I think we're going to see a large amount when, in two instances, when the next CBA is signed in the next few years.
I got a rule. I got something they should add.
And then when Bettman eventually steps down, they get a new guy. I imagine some guy will put his stamp on the NHL next. But what were you saying? Did you say you thought of a rule?
Yeah, I thought of one that I think would be the best one of all. Well, actually, two.
That?
One, bring back the World Cup of Hockey, and two, let NHL players go to the Olympics.
Jesus Christ, yes.
Like, it blows my mind that we've gone through the Olympics for the last couple of years, and there's no NHL players in. Like, I think that's just terrible.
We're just going to miss out on McDavid and Crosby playing on the same team in the Olympics. We're just going to miss out on that. Or even if we don't miss out on it, it's not going to be the Crosby that everyone knows. It's going to be like a 40-year-old Crosby. Like, we deserve to see these two generational talents playing together at their peaks. Like, come on.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah. Before we do move on, I just want to throw in there real quick. Well, since we were talking about salary cap in the playoffs, There's no way I haven't mentioned it to you at one point or another because I love bringing this up. But Tampa Bay back in 2015 moved a notion forward to the league to introduce a salary cap in the playoffs because Patrick Kane came back from injury for the Blackhawks, and the Blackhawks beat the Lightning in the 2015 finals.
Mm-hmm.
And 30, or I guess I don't know how many teams were in the league at that point. Probably 30.
30.
28 teams said no, and the St. Louis Blues agreed. The St. Louis Blues were the only team that agreed with the Lightning. So shout out to the Blues management for being cool. But everyone else was like, no, we want to try and abuse this same loophole.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, actually, no, I'm not going to dive into that. I was going to dive into Mark Stone being a crybaby and whatnot last night, but whatever. He'll be on LTIR in no time.
Yeah, he didn't like getting hit, and I get it, but you know,
I don't get it.
It's still professional hockey. You can't. I get people being like, you shouldn't be throwing big hits in the preseason, but
sure,
why not? Why not? If you're playing a hockey game, it's being televised.
26-year-old, yeah, if I'm a 26-year-old that's, you know, on a PTO and fighting like hell to get a chance to play in the NHL finally, you do whatever it takes. If you got to go out there and just be a fourth line grinder that puts up, you know, 10 hits is good defensively, like if that's your game, you should be allowed to. And it's also, Mark Stone wouldn't have got hit the way he did if he didn't slowly go into the corner and lazily play the puck, like treat it like an actual game. He
played the puck like he knew it was a preseason game.
Like, he thought he was like playing shinny out there, and that
I was gonna say,
and you know what?
I've seen guys in scrimmage play harder. So
yeah,
you know, it's yeah,
exactly.
You got to take it seriously. These guys are fighting for a roster spot.
Yeah, like he already knows he's the captain. He's making a cool whatever 10.5 mil, 9.5 mil, whatever it is. This kid's fighting for his life to get the chance to play in the league. So I 100% applaud him for that. And you know what? Look at it now. That's a highlight reel thing, and the Kings could be looking at it like, well, shit. Like maybe we should give this guy a chance if he's already, you know,
I
in
guarantee
preseason, if
he plays another game for the Kings now. Because after the game, Mark Stone said, yeah, well, at least I'm never going to see this guy again. And he clearly got very heated. The LA Kings will bring him up to play against the Knights later this season. You just know they're going to now. And it'll get right into their heads.
Well, it reminds me similar of when Matthews came to the league, and that Scott Sabrin guy was kind of trying to fight him, and Matthews was, you know, in a very douchebag manner, was like, going around to look at the back of his jersey and be like, who is this guy even? And then later on in the year, that same guy goes out and scores a goal against the Leafs. I'm pretty sure it was. And so it's like, now look at it. It's come full circle where Matthew's like, I don't even know who this guy is. And then Buddy comes back and ends up scoring on him later. So
yeah, I do love that chirp though. I do like whenever some guy comes up and starts beaking at him and the other guy's like, what's your name? Who the hell are you? That's always one that I think is a bit funny.
I think doing the gesture of following the guy to look at the back and like, where he'd be like,
I haven't seen the clip you're referencing. I don't know. Cadence is obviously important. You know, don't follow him to the bench to do it. But
yeah, it's pretty like I mean, making the chirp is fine, but I think, you know, trying to get behind him and look at his jersey and whatnot, I think that's just taking it a bit too far. But yeah, I mean, I think it's awesome though that kid's going out there and showing it doesn't matter if he's going up against
he's made more waves than like any other rookie in the preseason. Like, he's got his name
exactly
out there.
Right. Like it's kind of the biggest thing to come out of a guy, you know, trying to make his mark since last week when Logan Cooley put up that highlight reel goal.
Oh, that's true. That was a nice goal.
It was a fucking very nice goal.
All their goals were nice. Dude, I was watching that game. Or at least a bunch of the highlights from it, and like they looked freaking good. Like
they do, yeah.
Their one goal was on the power play, and I think it went through the hands of every guy on their power play unit, and it was like all of them made pinpoint passes. It was a nice finish. Like That does not look like anything I've ever seen from a Arizona uniform. I'll say that.
Yeah, exactly right.
So is all we have left is the NHL ratings. Do we want to? What time are we at? Do we want to do that now, or do we want to kind of maybe cut these up into 2 separate episodes?
I don't think it's a big enough thing that we can do that one on its own.
Okay. I was wondering how much of a deep dive do you want to do? Because we can do this like surface level, or like it. I mean, we could talk about anything hockey all day. So we could deep dive it, or we can just run over it.
Just surface level, unless something's like super egregious or something. Because I don't know any of these really. Like I know a couple, but I don't really know too much about them. So if anything's egregious, we can dive into it.
Yeah, and we could just talk about it briefly. We don't have to get into a whole thing of this guy compared to this guy. Like it's we know what's up.
Yeah. But you got the list here, so you can take her away.
Yeah. So they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I guess we'll just go over. They've got the on the EA Sports for NHL 24 on their website. They've got every category. You know, left wing, right wing, left defense, right defense, center, and goalie all broken up, and they've got the top 20 guys from each position put on here based on their overall. And we're just going to go over the top 10 for each position. We don't have to go to the top 20.
Okay.
But I guess let's start at the obvious one. Let's go center. So, number 1, obviously, Connor McDavid at a cool 97.
They should just make him a 99. Like,
you see,
it's such a cool thing that NFL does. But actually, no, never mind. I'm not going to dive in that because that's different.
I see 2 massive things that people talk about with these ratings, but they both contradict each other. One thing is everyone says McDavid is so sick, he should be 99, which I don't necessarily disagree with. But then everyone also says they don't properly rate defense in these games. And I'm thinking, okay, so Connor McDavid is obviously insane, but 99, he's not playing Patrice Bergeron level defense for a forward. Yeah. So both of them are definitely good points, but I feel like you can't have both, you know?
Well, and it's also the other argument people make is Madden does the 99 club, where they make a big thing of when a player is good enough, they get a 99, a perfect rating. But the thing is it's so different in the NFL because you have so many different positions where when you've got guys in that 99 club, it's usually only one player from each position because you can't compare, quarterbacks to wide receivers or defensive linemen
or safety. It's not going to work
in their own category. That's the best of the best that they get. I think that's awesome. The NHL, you can't really do that because it makes no sense in any way to be like, so what do you do? Like a 9? Like you can't do a 99 for each position because McDavid has to clearly be the best player in the game.
Yeah, you can't give 2 guys who, in my mind, are pretty close in skill in Kucherov and Pasternak. You can't have one of them be a 99 and then the other like a 93. Like that would exactly that would feel disingenuous to have them be that different.
Yeah, it just like I get the argument, but I don't know. Right. If they do one day, I think that's awesome. If not, I'm not losing sleep over it. So
yeah, a lot of people take these really seriously. Especially when you can go in every year when I get the game, first thing I do, I open it up and I go and I edit a bunch of the overalls. Like you can change them if you want. Like you don't have to play by the rules.
Right.
But anyway, number 2, we're going through the top 10 centers again. This is Draisaitl, 95, 2 overalls lower.
Okay, that's fair. I got no complaints with that.
Tied with him, so call it 2.5. Nathan McKinnon, also a 95.
Okay.
Number 4, Sidney Crosby, 93.
Yeah, there it is. I love that.
Yeah,
I think that's awesome.
I'm glad they still recognize how good Crosby is, because he really is still that tier that's like higher than elite.
Yeah, because like he doesn't get those like flashy goals really like McDavid, Matthews, McKinnon gets, but you know exactly what you're gonna get from him all the time, and you're getting consistency throughout the entire season. Like it's never,
Crosby,
you can't ever really be like, "Fuck, Crosby had a bad game tonight. Like
yeah.
if he was better, we would have won." Like you don't ever really have that conversation with Crosby.
I don't remember who said it, but I heard it a couple years ago, and this quote lives rent free in my head about Crosby. He is the most elite grinder that has ever played hockey. Like
Yeah,
he doesn't get those flashy plays near as much because he's not killing it up on the rush every game. He goes into the corner, he wins the puck battles almost every time, and then he comes out with it and makes the play in the zone.
yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, he
but
is the flashiest grinder.
anyway, Crosby at 4. Again, tied with him at 93 overall. In 5th, Austin Matthews.
Cheeks.
Then we got 3 people tied at 92. Elias Pettersson, Alexander Barkov, and Braden Point.
That's a good group to have together, those three.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with that.
I would personally have Barkov maybe down at a 91. I know that's not a popular opinion because people love calling him the most underrated player, which I heavily disagree with. I almost think he's overrated at this point just because he had that tag for so long.
I was gonna say, how can he be the most underrated player in the league for like 5 years in a row? Like, if everybody's saying he's underrated, I don't think he's underrated anymore.
Yeah. Huberdeau was more underrated when he was still on the Panthers for a while there.
Yeah, because everybody would just want to talk
obviously
Barkov.
Yeah. Obviously still an incredibly elite player. Like 90, me putting him at a 91 is nothing to sneeze at.
I think you can just make the argument he should be a 91 based on the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
Like, he was fucking bad. By his standards, at least.
And I'll cheat a little bit, and I'll go to the top 11 just because there's 3 players going all the way to point 11 that are tied at 91. That being Jack Hughes, Tage Thompson, and Jack Eichel.
Wow, yeah, good for Tage Thompson, man. Fuck, well deserved.
I definitely get people saying that like they don't know if he should be that high after only 2 years of really elite production, but like, not only was it really good production, but when you watch him on the ice, you can see it. Like, these are not accidental numbers. He plays like a 91.
Like, he carries that Buffalo team. Yeah, like he's more than
scary whenever he steps on the ice.
He could very well be up in that 93 by the end of the season. Like,
yeah,
he's still continuing to just get better, which is crazy considering what we're already getting from him.
All right. So we did in the centers. What do we want to go next? Want to go wingers?
Yeah, let's go wingers.
All right. So for left wingers, number 1, the only one at a 94, Matthew Tkachuk.
Okay. Yeah, I don't got anything against that.
Well, save that for a second, because at number 2, with the only one at 93, Artemi Panarin.
That's too high. That's way too high.
Yeah, I'd have him. He produces points really well. I might still have him at a 92. Definitely a 91 or a 92. I think 93 is a bit much.
I guess it depends on who's coming up next, but I would not have him that high up based on
the guys I'm looking at just after him. It's both of these guys tied at 92. These are probably the only 2 guys I would have over Panarin. So, like, at most, I'd have Panarin at 4th, maybe 5th.
Yeah.
But both at 92, you have Jason Robertson and Kirill the Thrill Kaprizov.
See, so I would have Kaprizov. I think you could have Panarin and Robertson on the same one.
I think both of them being a 92 and Kaprizov being a 93 would be better.
That's what I would have, yeah.
Kaprizov is just so good.
Yeah.
At 5th and 6th at 91, Alexander Ovechkin and Brad Marchand.
Okay, yeah. These guys probably
I
get a little bit of a bump down just because they're a little bit older, but
I don't like him, but like I'd probably still have Marchand at a 92. Um, Personally, I'd probably move Ovechkin down like one.
no. I think Ovechkin's fair like that, but I think Martian I would bump up one.
Yeah.
Because Ovechkin, like
Uh,
he's like a good shooter. He's got great senses and whatnot. He's still responsible defensively, and he's not afraid to mix it up and lay the body. Like
that's true. They
he's
do have
pretty high in all areas.
the physicality. I wasn't thinking about that because I don't think he's that great defensively. You know, there's a couple times where he's really just leaving guys out to dry, but you know, with the way they weight things, you know, defense and then also the physicality, like it's got a couple preview stats here, and his strength is at a 94.
Yeah,
Like
dude's got some power.
nobody else on this list of the top 10 left wingers is even in a 90, other than Matthew Tkachuk, who's at a 91.
Yeah, like and Kachuk's a different breed.
Yeah, nobody at 90 for left wingers. We're going down to
Really?
89 here.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, perfect. And the entire rest of the top 10 is all tied. All tied at 89 overall. We got Clayton Keller, Brady Tkachuk, Johnny Gaudreau, and Kyle Connor.
Yeah, I've got no issues with that at all. I think those guys are all around in the same area, so I got no complaints there.
I think three of them are pretty close. I think Johnny Gaudreau could do with a 90. Maybe 2 years ago I'd give him a 91 or a 92, but I think a 90 would be fair right now.
And what were all those guys you just listed off? They were all
89.
89. Okay, yeah, so I would be okay with Gaudreau being
Gaudreau seems better than those three by a bit, but he doesn't seem on the level of anyone above. So that 90 spot would be kind of a sweet middle.
Yeah, and I think, if he plays a full season with Fantilli and Laine, you could see that even bump up. If he starts popping off with those two, I could see them bumping him up a bit.
I think that top line in Columbus is about to feast a little bit more than people realize. If Fantilli is ready to be that guy, playing with Laine, Gaudreau, that could be huge.
Yeah.
Moving on to right wingers. Honestly, this first one is probably the biggest issue I have in the top 10 here. Actually, never mind. There's one really bad one. This is probably... I guess I haven't even looked at the other three, but this one's the worst so far, I'll say.
Okay.
So number one, David Pastrnak. What do you think he's at for overall?
93?
95 overall, David Pastrnak.
Oh.
That's the same.
Him the same as Draisaitl.
That's the same as Draisaitl and McDavid. And
McKinnon. McDavid's.
Oh, McKinnon. Yeah, McKinnon. Sorry.
Honestly, I will say actually, I bet McDavid fucking loves City's 97 because that's his number.
I don't doubt that he pays him fucking $9,700 to have him be that overall. Hockey guys love their specific numbers.
And I get the argument. Pastrnak just put up,
61 goals.
Like, I wouldn't put him near on the same caliber as a McKinnon or Draisaitl.
Yeah,
that one's too high.
That's a bit much.
And I think what I think with some of the guys Boston lost, I bet you see Pastrnak take quite a bit of a hit this year. And if he does the same thing, then I think he's more than fair for that rating. But
I was gonna say, if he puts up 60 again without Bergeron on his line, like nothing but respect.
Yeah, like if he's doing it with fucking Charlie Coyle as a center, then all the power he deserves that.
But not only was he playing on a very good stacked line, that team was historically good. I mean,
right. Like, why is he 95?
It gets exhausting saying that. Can we say this guy is this good because his team is good? Like, I don't like that argument, but
yeah,
when they beat the league record for wins by 3 in a what is it, like 130-year-old league? Like, that's ludicrous.
Yeah.
So anyway, Pasternak first at 95. Second, the only guy at 94, Nikita Kucherov.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I would definitely have both of them at a 94.
Yeah,
I think they're really close at this point. One's more of a playmaker, one's more of a sniper. It's a 1A, 1B type situation.
yeah. Like I wouldn't put Kucherov up there, with like Draisaitl and whatnot. But I in no world would I say Pasternak should be above Kucherov.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Making it real easy to start off here. In third, the only guy who's a 93, Mikko Rantanen.
Yeah, you know what? I was indifferent on him for the first bit, but I'm really starting to see his overall just complete game. From on both ends of the ice, and he does everything. I'm okay with that.
I would probably move him down one just because 93, he's on par with Crosby, Matthews. Like, I feel like he could go down one and be more closer to a Braden Point. But I mean, one overall of difference.
Yeah.
Number 4, the only guy at 92, Mitch Marner.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. That's fair.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect rating for him. Number 5, the only guy who's 90, skipping over 91, Mark Stone.
Yeah, he's probably got a durability rating of 0, so it's like, So I mean, I feel like that's got to take a bit of a hit to his rating.
I can't imagine durability counts into it too much. I know a lot of people say that defensive stats don't, and you know what? I don't think the shot blocking or the stick checking do really, but I think defensive awareness counts like quite a bit.
Yeah, that and offense awareness are kind of the two biggest ones that control an overall rating.
Yeah.
Which I will say, like, he's probably got good defense awareness, but no durability. He's made of glass, so.
And then down at 89, we have 1, 2, 3 guys. We got Andrei Svechnikov, William Nylander, and can you guess the other guy who's an 89 right winger?
I'll give you a hint. No.
I'll give you a hint. You can't guess the team he's on because he doesn't have one.
Oh, Patrick Kane.
Patrick Kane.
Yeah, he should be a little bit higher. Honestly, I think he's the perfect guy to have in there at 91.
Oh, you must be goofing on me. Dude, I'd put him at like an 87 at this point.
No.
He is not that elite player anymore. I mean, he's still a free agent. Like,
but that's because he had surgery and whatnot. Like, he's just getting back on the ice now.
Yeah, but you could still sign with a team.
But
he wasn't even leading. He wasn't even like to have him up at a 90. Like, he wasn't even leading the Chicago Blackhawks before he got traded.
He wasn't points per game though.
I don't know how much time he missed, so that's fair. I know it was. Was it Max Domi?
I would stop him up there because I think if Kane goes to even a decent team, I still see him being at least a point per game player.
I think he's going to be closer around 70. I think he's starting to age out. He's still good, and he should definitely be in the top 20. I think
he's one of those guys like a Joe Thornton when he was, I think, like 37 or something. He was still a point per game because his hockey IQ is just so good, and that goes such a long way when you get a little bit older and you're not as fast, and maybe your shot's not as hard as it used to be or something. But that hockey IQ can just make all the difference for those aging players.
I'm looking at some of these names, and I would, in the current day, in their current form, I would take all these guys over them. Like, how many they got tied next? We're going to 11 again because there's 3 guys. Tied at 88, we got Jordan Kyrou, Pavel Buchnevich, and Joe Pavelski.
Okay, so I think Pavelski should actually be a bit higher. And again, that's just because, like, like he's 39 and he's still a point per game guy. I mean, he just came back in the playoffs after an injury and dropped, what was it, 4 goals?
I think it was 4 goals in a game.
Like, I think Pavelski should. I would even bump him up.
I'd put him at least in an 89. I think he's really good at 89 with right beside William Nylander. I think that's a decent comparable.
Yeah. But overall, that's not a terrible ranking for him. I do think Pasternak shouldn't be not only should he not be the sole number one guy, but he shouldn't be on the same level as Draisaitl and McKinnon.
I would say, if you want to say that Pasternak's better than Kucherov, I'm not going to argue till I'm blue in the face about it. But to put him on the same level as Draisaitl and McKinnon is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Moving to defense, we got left defenseman.
Okay.
Number 1, the only guy with a 94 overall, Roman Josi.
Really? Josi over Fox? I'm not opposed to that. I'm not against that.
This is for left defense.
Oh, Adam Fox is righty, isn't he?
Yeah. At least I assume so. I don't see him here in the top 8.
Yeah, so yeah, he would be.
So I'm assuming. Right. Down, the only guy in second place, the only guy with a 93, Victor Hedman.
Okay.
He definitely, I think it was a 94 last year, so his overall did take a hit.
Yeah, if you asked me last year, I'd probably have them tied together at the top, but
I'd have them both at a 94. I definitely get moving them down because of last year.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it for a bounce back this year for him.
But given last year, only to be knocked down 1 isn't too bad, actually.
Yeah.
Like we've seen that on the players before, and they bump them down like 4 or 5. So.
Yeah. They really, some players, they get the benefit of the doubt, and some of them free fall after one bad year.
We saw in the span of like a year and a half, Erik Karlsson went from the number 1 defenseman in the game at a 93 all the way down to an 86. So
yeah,
like we've seen guys really just take the brunt of it.
I'm just flipping back over for a sec to find him, so to talk about him. Jonathan Huberdeau is an 88, 14th.
Yeah,
for left wingers. Like after the 1 year, like he was a 93 the year before, I think.
I watched him in preseason the other night at the Flames game, and he looked good. So I think he could very well see him jump up this year.
Yeah, I got to. It's actually one of those I was there moments. I got to see him in his very first game with the Flames. I saw him at his very first preseason game last year, and I remember there was one goal where he came in on the side, and then he just stopped on a dime and 360 passed it across, and this guy, whoever was coming in with him, just absolute empty net, could not miss it. And I was like, holy crap, this guy is gonna light it up with the Flames. He came in so ready. I don't know what happened. It must have been the coaching to me, but
yeah,
we'll see under a new coach. But anyway, Hedman was at 93 in second. Nobody at 92. Bit of a gap. Then the only guy at 91.
92. This better be him.
I have a feeling I know who you're going to say, but I don't think it is. At 91 in third, Rasmus Dahlin.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay, tell me he's in fourth then.
I imagine the guy you're talking about is in fifth, but we'll see.
No.
But that being said, 4 and 5 are tied.
Okay.
Both at a 90, we have Quinn Hughes and Miro Heiskanen.
Yeah, Heiskanen should be higher.
Yeah. Was that the guy you were talking?
Yeah, Heiskanen should be that guy in the 92.
I think him and Dahlin should be tied. I'd honestly say they should both be tied at 92. I think Dahlin could go up 1 as well.
I give Heiskanen the edge because I think even more than Cale Makar, I think in terms of pure skating, there is no better skating defenseman in the league than Heiskanen. Like his skating is just it's so next level, and the fact he just dropped 70 plus points, he's so good in his own end. Like, man, I wouldn't be shocked if we're talking in 3 years and he's number one. Like he's that guy solely in
He
the
looks
94.
to be really good.
But
yeah,
I do expect he'll probably, honestly, I'd probably see him, Quinn Hughes, and Dolly, and all getting increases throughout the year. So
yeah. I would say, honestly, I would increase all three of those guys. I'd have Dahlin at a 92, Heiskanen at a 92, and I'd move Quinn Hughes up to a 91. I think they could all be a bit better.
Wouldn't be terrible.
Who's
in at 6?
At 6, 7, and 8, all at an 89, we have Shea Theodore, Josh Morrissey, and Devon Taves.
Damn, good for Josh Morrissey, man.
Yeah, well deserved too.
Very well deserved. Yeah, I got no issues with those three guys there, though. I think that's fair. And I think if Josh Morrissey does again this year what he did last year, you can make the argument for him being in that 90 club.
For this one, we're going all the way to 13. There's 5 guys tied at 88. A little bit of a
logjam.
And I've got a little bonus thing to say on this one as well. So the guys all tied at 88 are Jacob Slavin, Thomas Chabot, next page, Mikhail Sergachev, Adam Pelech, and Hampus Lindholm.
See, so the one I would not have Chabot in there with those 4. I think he's a little.
I think that's fair.
I think he should be one below them. I think those other 3 guys, Slavin and Pelech are probably the 2 best just defensive defensemen,
shut down defensemen
in the game. And I don't think that Chabot's on the level with them. What was the other 2?
Theodore Sergachev and Lindholm.
Oh yeah.
Theodore was up at 89.
Yeah, so I think all 4 of those guys minus Chabot should be on the same level as Shea Theodore. But I mean I can see with a Slavin and Pelech, their offensive games aren't as high as some, so that does take a hit. But I think what they do defensively should balance that out.
Right. And one thing I wanted to get into a little bit quickly here is earlier today I was watching a video where on Bar Down they went over some of these ratings. And for those of you who don't know, Bar Down is just a group of guys that work for a TSN. They post on the TSN YouTube channel, and they do all kinds of content, quizzes, stuff, whatnot. They're generally pretty good, but I did not enjoy this take because they said Mikhail Sergachev seems like an outlier, the same way you're saying Chabot does in this group.
I can see the argument, but I think given the upside that we know that there isn't Sergachev, I think he's fair to be in there.
Yeah, because I went out and did my homework before the podcast because I didn't want to come in here with an empty gun. And I put them all in on StatHead and got all of their last year result stats right here. And so they got Sergachev had 64 points last year. Chabot had 41, Pelech had 21, Lindholm had 53, and Slavin had 27. So Sergachev had 11 more points than Lindholm, and then the guy who's third on the list, he had 23 more points than him.
I'm pretty sure also led the league in plus minus. I'm pretty sure his defense numbers were actually really good last year.
On that Boston team, who wouldn't, right?
You can also make the argument for Sergachev is he played on that top Tampa power play unit as well.
Yeah. A lot of these guys are, we're still talking about 88 overalls. A lot of these guys are the top defensemen on their team. But if you want to say that these guys you think they're better than him defensively, I'm certainly not going to argue that on Pelech or Slavin. But I don't think Sergachev's bad enough defensively, considering his offensive numbers are so much better, that he should at least be any lower than these guys. I'm not arguing for the move up. I think 88's a good spot.
He shouldn't be lower. I think Chabot's the one that is really, just because his defensive numbers don't wow me. like his best offense season was 55 points, and that was also like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Given the situation he's in with Ottawa, I could definitely see him having a really good year and being more than deserving of that. But I think as of right now, I think it's just. But I
I
mean,
don't know if
I
that'll
like
even
that
happen now that they have Jake Sanderson. I think he's
yeah,
going to start losing a bit of ice time.
and Jacob Chikrin's fully healthy now, so it's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
but
Chabot
that's
could have been moved down.
overall.
Personally, I'd replace him with Zach Werenski, but Werenski only played like 8.
Yeah,
he only played like 8 games last year, so it's hard to say, right? You can't.
Yeah, that one's.
It's hard to
too
improve
tough.
a guy's overall when he didn't play.
Yeah, exactly right.
Now moving on to the bit more sexy list to look at for defensemen, the right defensemen. They typically just, I don't know, they just seem to score more often. More rare defensemen as well. Definitely more left-handed defensemen. So number 1, Cale Makar, 95.
Yeah, I got no issues with that. That's fair.
Yeah, I was gonna say at the like, I kind of want to argue a little bit. He should be below McKinnon, Draisaitl, but at the absolute lowest, you'd have him at a 94, right?
The thing is, though, is right. It's so tough to compare defensemen to forwards.
It really is.
Centermen,
so I'm fine with the 95.
The one defenseman, kind of like McDavid, Makar's like in his own. Much like I'm assuming Vasilevsky's probably the only goalie in his rating at the highest. So
yeah, well, hold your horses there. We'll get to the goalies in a minute. But from 95 dropping down to a 92, there's no 94 or 93 right-handed defenseman.
Wow.
At number 2, we got Charlie McAvoy, and then at 3 we got Adam Fox, which are both 92.
Yeah. Damn, I didn't think Fox. I thought they were gonna have him at 94. I'm shocked they have him.
I'm surprised he's not at least a 93.
Yeah, 93 at the bare minimum.
Yeah.
I mean, I've made it very clear I don't like Adam Fox. I think just his way of, turning down everything and forcing his way to the Rangers, I think is a little scummy and whatnot.
Especially,
but you can't.
The worst part is that it worked because it's a dangerous box to open if you allow players to just be like, I'm only playing here.
Yeah.
Similar to the thing we talked about earlier with the salary cap, like then you just end up, everyone's going to Florida and everyone's going to California because it's just nice to be in those places.
Yeah, exactly right.
But in 4th, the only guy at 91, Pittsburgh Penguins legend Erik Karlsson.
See, so I bet if he was on San Jose, he would at max be like 88, I bet.
Yeah.
I think
I wonder.
Not only the season he had, but now that he's on Pittsburgh, I think they're fine spiking him way up to that. But good for him, though. Like, that's huge to have.
Absolutely. I mean, he definitely deserves at least a 90 after the year he had.
If he puts up, I mean, if it does happen on the Penguins and he drops 100 points again,
94 minimum. 2 years in a row, 94 minimum.
Well, and then do you be like, fuck, he should be that guy in the 95, or he should be right up there with, Makar type of thing.
Yeah, he should be either 95 or a 96, because if he did it again, that'd be 2 Norrises in a row. That's solidified. If you win 2 Norris in a row, you're solidified as the best defenseman in the league. Like,
exactly right.
What way around it is there? If you're the best 2 years in a row.
Exactly.
And honestly, it'd probably be in Hart consideration. I mean, honestly, should have been a bit last year at least, but I hate the argument that you can't win a Hart on a non-playoff team.
Yeah.
5 and 6, both tied at 90. Dougie Hamilton and John Carlson.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
I think John Carlson's a bit high at this point. I think his scoring has dropped off only a little bit, but he's pretty bad defensively. He was never good at it, and he's only gotten worse with age.
Yeah, you can make the argument. I'm okay with him being on that same page as
But
Dougie Hamilton, though.
I was going to
But
say a 90 is not that high, so I don't hate the rating. I'd have him at
yeah,
maybe an 89. Um, if for nothing else, I think he just fits in with this next group of two guys really well at 7 and 8, both an 89, Alex Pietrangelo and Drew Doughty.
okay, yeah. So that's more fair.
And then how many people we got at 88? We got 4 at 88, and one of them doesn't have a picture. That's tough soak for him. At 9, 10, 11, 12, we got Mo Sider, Chris Letang, Brandon Montour, and Aaron Ekblad.
So yes, I think Sider's a bit too high because he struggled last year. But I get it. Like they want to have those young defensemen kind of high up in there as some of the best in the game. But I think he's just not on the level that
an 88 isn't
Montour
a crazy.
No, but it's just
crazy level.
When you
I would personally have Ekblad higher.
Guys.
He's had injury issues, but I think Ekblad could be a 90.
Yeah.
Well, the last time we saw him healthy, like when he is playing, he is on.
Yeah. Overall, that's not a terrible list, so I think they got most of those right.
Yeah.
And last but not least,
we already said the goalies.
I mean, I know what the top 3 should be. I don't know if they're going to be that way, but
it's wild. It's funny because we did our list we went through earlier in the off season for what people ranked, and I'm seeing a very similar thing to what we said before of around 7, 8, 9. There's an obvious fall off in skill, and you can see that in this list as well.
Okay.
Number 1, the only guy at 93, just like you said, Andrei Vasilevsky.
Okay, yeah, as it should be.
And then 2 guys tied at 92 apiece, 2 and 3.
The other 2 Russians.
Ilya Sorokin and Igor Shesterkin. Yeah, that top 3 being all Russian flags is damn. They putting something in the water there.
Yeah, but those 3 should be the top 3, so
I think that's I don't think you're going to find many people that disagree with that.
Yeah, and anyone who does, like, they don't have a leg to stand on.
They're probably just like a homer and a Jets fan or something.
Yeah, exactly right.
Only guy at 91 in 4th, Connor Hellebuck.
Yeah, as he should be.
2 guys, 5 and 6, tied at 90. Linus Ullmark and Jake Ottinger.
I mean, I guess I get the recency bias for Ullmark. So I mean that it's understandable.
Just won the Vezina as well, so
good for Ottinger though.
Yeah,
that's
huge.
I
think they could both be down at an 89, but 90 is fine for them.
So I'm assuming they have Saros then in at 89.
The only guy at 89, UC Saros. I think he could be. I think he should be tied with Hellebuck at 91. I think.
Yeah, you can make the argument.
He stole a lot of games for a not very good Nashville team.
Yeah.
The only guy at an 88, Freddie Anderson.
Okay. Yeah, good veteran. He's never a top elite goalie in the league, but he's never been anything less than a very serviceable starter. So that's fair.
Yeah. And then we got 3 guys tied for 9, 10, 11. At 87, we got Tristan Jarry, Thatcher Demko, and Carter Hart.
So see, with what Carter Hart's done, how can you have him that high? Like,
yeah, I think a lot of people are really excited for him to be the face of Canadian goaltending, and it just hasn't worked out. He's the only guy with a Canadian flag beside him in this top 10.
Yeah, like goaltending in Canada's really taken a hit lately. That's not a terrible list, though. It's surprising there's not the Bobrovsky in there anymore, the Jacob Markstrom, the Marc-Andre Fleury. Like it's.
I don't see Fleury, but both of those other Markstrom and Bobrovsky are both 86.
Okay.
which the guys we were just talking about were 87. The rest of the list up to the 20th spot are 86.
Okay.
Who was the other one you said? Did you say John Gibson?
No.
For some reason, I thought you said John Gibson.
Fleury.
He's an 86. Right. There's Philip Gustafson, 86. Samsonov, Kemper, Swayman. There's a lot of guys that kind of make sense. Some of them are like, Bobrovsky and Markstrom are both like, they were really good and then they fell off and they're just kind of at this weird 86.
Yeah.
Same with Gibson, really.
Yeah. Overall, that's not a terrible list.
No, I think
all those are valid.
Yeah, I think that might even be the most solid list, honestly. Like,
yeah,
make a small few adjustments, but yeah, that's all of the top 10s.
Overall, I would say they did pretty well on that.
I think it's got to be the best job that they've done that I've ever bet. As far as I can remember them doing these like top ratings lists that they do to hype up the game coming out each year, I think this is really the best that they've ever done. I feel like before they'd be like, they always have some really weird ones. Like Drew Doughty, like last year was like a 94 or something like that. They'd always have these weird outliers that were really high.
Yeah, for sure.
They're definitely doing less of the keeping people at high overalls. I kind of thought they were doing that with Kane. I thought that seemed pretty clear, but I mean, you watch just as much, if not more, hockey than me, and you think he should be higher. So clearly, it's not as crazy as I thought.
Yeah, for sure, right.
But yeah, that's all I got. Unless you got anything small you want to throw in before we wrap up.
Just actually give me one quick second here.
Sure thing. I'll take a look here, see if there's anything else goofy on here. Point out.
Yeah.
Who do we got next on the right wing thing? Alex Tuck at 87. What a lad. Timo Meier also an 87. Timo could have been a bit higher on that right wing list. He seems out of.
He could be a little bit higher.
Timo seems out of place next to all these guys at an 87. Like, these are all good players, but 88, 89 for Timo, I think.
Yeah, you can make that argument for sure, and I'm assuming he'll probably go up as the season goes on with.
Yeah. Well, especially
with New Jersey
on the Devils, they have so many eyes on them now.
Yeah, exactly right.
Tyler Toffoli, his new teammate, also an 87 right here.
Okay.
Which, I mean, led Calgary in points, right? I think he led him in goals and points, I think. So
yeah. Yeah, I think that do you have anything else you want to cover? Is that kind of us wrapping this up? We've been going for a little over 2 hours now here.
Yeah, I'm good if you don't have anything else to add.
Yeah, no, I don't really got anything. It's just waiting for regular season to start. Maybe some more crazy stuff will happen in the preseason. Who knows?
Yeah. Were you searching up to see if any breaking news happened while we were doing this?
Yeah, there's really nothing happening right now.
Yeah. Yep. I'm sure by next week we'll have a whole bunch of new stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I feel like come next week there's going to be quite a lot to cover. So, yeah. Any last words to throw in here before we get out of here?
Get well soon, Vasi. We fucking need you.
Yeah, honestly. Awesome. Well, thanks to everybody for listening. Check out any of the other episodes if you haven't yet. We've been putting out a lot of good hockey content lately, and we will continue to do so. Again, thanks for listening, and we will catch you in the next one.